Hello, out there, weirdos, and welcome to another episode of the Weird Wide Web podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay B. Goddard, and I am here today with author and editor TJ Price. A quick intro for our guest. TJ Price's corporeal being is currently located in Raleigh, North Carolina, where he lives with his handsome partner of many years. But his ghosts can be found in northeastern Connecticut, southern Maine, North Brooklyn, and the corner of your eye. He is the author of The Disappearance of Tom Nero, a novelette, and his work has been published in venues such as Nightmare Magazine, Pseudopod, and Cosmic Horror Monthly, as well as various anthologies and assorted grimoires. He currently serves as assistant editor at Haven Spec Magazine and is also the editor of the forthcoming anthology, Odd Jobs, 6 Files from the Department of Inhuman Resources, from Undertaker Books. He can be invoked at either tjpricewrites.com or go to the darkest place you know and whisper his name. Please note, the author is not responsible for what may answer. All right, so we're here with TJ, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty great. How are you, Lindsay?
I'm doing good. I'm 2 stories into a really great book, and I can't wait to be further in a great book called Odd Jobs, 6 Files from the Department of Inhuman Resources, upcoming from Undertaker Books. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very excited about the project. All of the writers involved are colleagues and friends of mine, and I have great respect for all of their talents. So to see them all in one place and to help them produce this book has been both an honor and a privilege.
And when is the release date for Odd Jobs?
Believe it or not, it is this Friday, the 13th.
That's perfect. I didn't even know that. I just went into that question. So Friday the 13th, look out for that, everyone. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if I was more impressed by reading your biography or by reading the lineup of authors you have in this book coming out. Oh my goodness. Nightmare Magazine, Pseudopod. How do you even get into Pseudopod? They're open for like 1 second.
I got lucky. I think they actually accepted a reprint of mine from an anthology called Howls from the Wreckage, which is a disaster-themed anthology published by Howl Society Press, and they really, really liked it. And they
I
did a
doubt you
fantastic
got
job.
lucky though. I'm sure that it was the writing.
I like to think it had something to do with that. Yeah. So yeah.
So you've been at this a while. How did this new anthology come about?
So it's an interesting story, actually. I was brought in rather late in the process because I was going to start my own press until I started to realize that that was going to be a bit prohibitive. I'm not very good at like the administrative or business end of things. I just really want to get out there in the world and talk about people's work that I really, really like and, help other people find work that I also really like. So I kind of fell down on the job when it came to that part of it, but a good friend of mine brought
Or
me
you
over.
dodged a bullet? One of the
or, I,
two.
or I dodged a bullet. That is correct. But you see so much in the news and in the discourse about like independent presses either failing to honor contracts or disappearing or shuttering. So I do think that I learned a little bit quicker than some that it is not just a dream job. It is, but you have to be, I think, calibrated for that sort of thing.
Sometimes dreams are nightmares. Yes.
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes, yes. But I was happy to be included, and I made a vow to myself that I would not fall down on the job. Even if I didn't do my own thing, I wanted to make sure that this project went through, as well as 2 others that I have kind of in the works. But this one in particular, I really, really wanted to get out there in the world. So when I was told about
So
it and given the chance, I said, yeah.
was it through invites then? Because these are just some amazing authors. I'm going to go back to that. I'm curious how they got rounded up together.
They were sort of rounded up together. Carson Winter was the mastermind behind all of them. He's very, very good at just deciding that he wants to work with some people, and he hadn't worked with a lot of these folks before, and he really respects their talents as well as I do, and put them all together and said, let's write about something and make something happen. And they did.
Well, like I said, I'm two stories in, and it's really already just got a vibe. I'm so curious to get further and see if the other stories have the same parallels that these first two already do. I mean, without spoiling anything, I can say a similarity I noticed is these companies will put these propaganda videos, in their employees' faces
Mm.
24/7 maybe, but that's kind of I've almost worked for a company like that, so it gives you these vibes like, oh, we're so close to that with some of these jobs that we've had, and it's I don't know, I'm really curious to keep going. And how did the idea come together to make it about workplace horror?
So they decided, the authors themselves decided what they wanted to write about in terms of like a common theme, which is where kind of the title came from, Odd Jobs, which was the title of the manuscript when I first read it. And my challenge as editor was trying to find some way to unite them thematically. And I also have a day job. And other than just writing and editing, I work at a supermarket, and I had been, let's just say, blessed with a particularly strange performance evaluation. And I suddenly found myself interested in like forms and HR and all the different ways we categorize ourselves as like cogs in the capitalist machine and what have you. So what I decided was that each story was going to come with its own facsimile of some sort of HR form that would link to the material in the story, and then decided that all of that HR stuff would be part of a larger, like, more nefarious capital C company that had all of these different companies underneath their umbrella in a way. So
And it really comes across, and I enjoyed your intro as well. I mean, if anything is going to make you want to read a book, it's that intro. So nicely done there.
well, thank you. I was pretty happy with it, especially once I came up with the thematic links and the kind of narrative ligaments that held all of the disparate stories together. I was on board. I made all the graphic design for the marketing and promotions, and I got to have a lot of fun with that. So,
Were you tempted to try to put one of your own stories in it, or were you just kind of keeping your own work separate from that?
oh heavens, no! It was already a manuscript that was finished when I received it, so I was happy that the authors allowed me to write the introduction the way that I did. I didn't feel that it really needed much of an introduction. I could have reached out maybe to someone and asked, another writer to do the introduction and kind of talk about the authors and the stories a little bit. But I kind of like the idea that the stories exist in like a narrative continuum that is linked to a fictional narrative continuum that like kind of starts with that editorial
Yes, because
forward.
I felt like I had read three stories by the time I finished too, because, it reads as a story and it really does pull you in, which makes me want to read your other work. Um, I'll have to look for some of these. I'm looking back at your bio, The Disappearance of Tom Nero. Did I say that right?
You did indeed, yes.
And that's a novelette. Is that available somewhere where I can grab a hold of it and read that when I'm done with this anthology?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been published by Spooky House Press. It's been about a year and a half since it was first put out. It is available paperback on Amazon, wherever books are sold, kind of thing. And I believe it's free to read on Kindle Unlimited. I will caution you that it is a mixed media novelette, so there are some kind of illustrations and some really neat formatting that goes on. And I do find that it is better experienced in paperback, but that's just.
I can appreciate that because I fully stand behind any kind of mixed media format. And in the past, I've pulled in illustrators for some of my stories as well. I think it creates a more immersive experience the more you can tap into all the different senses. So That I probably would do the paperback on that. Thank you for that.
Well, wonderful. Yes, I hope you enjoy it. I very much love a collaborative experience, and that was what I got with Spooky House. Both Robert Ottone and Alexis Macaluso worked with me to create this piece, and it was just such a thrill to be able to work with people that were like looking at my material and saying, "Oh, what can we do with this? Like, what can we bring to this? How can we, make this different?" And I kind of wanted to bring that same spirit of collaboration and interpretation to Odd Jobs.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hearing from you as the experience of working with other creatives really seems to sing to your soul. And
Yeah,
we have I'm not even gonna try to list all the awards that some of these authors in this book have won. I mean, I'm gonna attempt to read the author lineup here.
sure.
Let's see. So the first story is Lips Sealed Steeped in Oil Pores Opening Like Mouths by Ai Jiang. Is that it?
That's it.
And then there's Rags to Riches by Ivy Grimes. Got These Little Tyrants by Erik McHatton.
Hmm.
Uh, In the Light of Their Bones by Carson Winter. Investigation into a Disappearance by Christi Nogle.
Hmm.
And Future Portraits of the Unhappy Dead by Caleb Stevens.
Yeah.
So what that tells me, when there is 6 stories in a collection, of course I can't just blanket this across every anthology I've read, but usually they pack quite a punch and they stay with you for a while because they have been assembled for a purpose and to be a cohesive sort of experience. So I think on October 13th, Friday the 13th, everyone needs to run out and get this book. That's what I think.
It's actually it's September. It's this
Oh,
Friday.
yeah, we're still in. Well, you know what just happened because we're horror writers? My goodness, I am already in October. Oh, I am. It's just so that is September 13th, everybody. This Friday 13th. You can get that book. And I apologize that I'm already doing the Halloween thing because if you don't plan for it early, it slips right by.
We'll just call September 1st October from now on, and we'll be good.
I like that. I'm on that train.
Yeah.
I I'm surprised I haven't gotten any Halloween decorations up yet.
You got plenty of time. 1st October has only just started.
Is there going to be any other sort of release party or anything fun going on for the release of Odd Jobs?
Yeah, definitely. There's actually the illustrious P.L. Macmillan will be hosting a launch party this coming Thursday evening. I believe the link is out there on social media. Should be an Eventbrite link, I think. And yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to talk about it a little bit. We're going to have some readings from the authors. We're going to have some giveaways. It'll be good.
And probably a great way to keep up with all that, which I do, is just to follow Undertaker Books on
Yeah,
social media because that'll put it right in your news feed. And if I may go so far as to say, you should go favorite them to make sure that you see it in your news feed.
definitely.
Um, I'm pretty excited about a lot of the stuff going on with Undertaker Books. I'm not part of it. I haven't even submitted anything, but I see it going on, and I think Rebecca Cuthbert. They've got a strong leader there, and I think it's going to go places. And I'm excited. She's going to be a guest toward the end of this month, which I think is September, on the podcast. And we're going to talk about some more Undertaker Books type stuff.
Awesome. Rebecca is wonderful. She has such a great eye for editorial stuff. She went through this manuscript multiple times to help me get it into a really, really great shape at the end, and caught some things that I definitely overlooked. And it just super, super appreciated. And both Cyan and DL are doing really great things with Undertaker. The paperback pre-order, if no one has noticed, it's already available and posted online for pre-order. But if you purchase the paperback, it does come with a free ebook, which I think is very cool and not standard, and I am very appreciative of that.
It makes you question why that isn't the standard.
It does.
Because, DVDs started doing that where you could download it onto your devices.
Yeah.
And you guys might be the innovators there.
I think it's great. I think it's a step in the right direction, and I applaud them both for taking it. They're doing really, really good work over there, and even though they're a new press and they're trying to get their name out there, I think that you'll be hearing a lot more from them in the future.
I'm sure. And I know we're here to discuss odd jobs, 6 files from the Department of Inhuman Resources. But I'm here with you, and I'm kind of curious. Do you, well, what I like to know when I get to know a fellow author, because I'm a bit of a short story addict, I admittedly have a problem with it. I've written hundreds. So, do you have a preference of what you prefer to write, whether it's short fiction, long fiction? Do you struggle with either of them? What's going on with you over there, TJ? Let's get to know.
Well, yeah, I do. I do have a predilection for short fiction. I have a predilection for fiction, especially that likes to push the envelope or be experimental in a lot of different ways. And I've consumed more short fiction, I think, in my lifetime at this point than I have novels or long form fiction.
Me too.
And I like it that way. I mean, lately, actually, I've been reading more novels than I have been short stories. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but there's nothing like a well pieced together collection of short fiction. And I love anthologies. I love unthemed anthologies. I love short story collections. I love it when authors include their story notes in the back. Even if they don't, I like to imagine that they're there anyway. Which is, fine. It's an author's preference for whether or not they include those, obviously. But I love to read them. So
Well, this is a hard question to put you on the spot with, but do you have a favorite anthology that your work has been in?
I do, and it's only because I also had a hand in the editorial process of it, and it also features some of the authors that are in Odd Jobs, and that anthology is called Collage Macabre, subtitled An
Ooh,
Exhibition of Art Horror.
I love that title.
Yes, that was a good one, and it was a community anthology of a bunch of friends and colleagues, and we all decided we wanted to write something about horror in the arts, and not necessarily just visual arts, but any kind of art form that's out there. The reason that it's my favorite is because I'm directly responsible for the sequencing of the stories in that anthology, and I'm very, very proud of how they flow from story to story to story, and there's some really incredible pieces in there.
That is an underappreciated art form in itself.
Yes, I agree. I used to want to be the kid. Speaking of DVDs, do you remember when they had the little inserts with the chapter titles?
Oh, yeah.
I always wanted to be that guy. It's
Just
like, how do
over
you get
there.
that job?
That is so funny. What's your story about in that one?
Oh, in that one, it's called Lack, which is about a couple, a man and his lover, who are one of them is an artist, and one of them is sort of not, and one of them discovers this black paint, which is sort of a riff on Vanta Black or Super Black, whoever you support, blacker than black, and there's some cosmic horror involved, and how the painting sort of becomes representative of the dissolution of their relationship and the cracks in their trust, and how it all starts
I
to.
love that. And strangely enough, I've been reading a lot of horror lately that involves the other art forms. I
Interesting.
There was a story I read recently about paintings, and then one about music the other day. So maybe that's a sign that I need to go check that out.
I would highly recommend it. I like my story. I don't think it is the strongest in the anthology. There are a few in there that will like blow you away. The Red Lady by Mob is the opener, and it's fantastic. One of my favorite stories. That was also picked up by Pseudopod, and they narrated it for their website. And we also have Twigs by Andrew F. Sullivan, who wrote The Marigold and co-wrote The Handyman Method with Nick Cutter. He's
Wow.
amazing. That story is fantastic. Christi Nogle has a story in there called Callous. Erik McHatton has a story in there called Station 42. There's so many good ones.
My TBR is growing as we speak.
That's okay. That's what they're meant to do. I like to tell people that I think a lot of people envision the TBR, as it were, as like a tower that, just is constantly toppling, threatening to fall over. But I like to think of it as more of like a garden, and it's always going to grow. It might need to be weeded from time to time, but it will always grow.
That is a lot less intimidating seeming, so thank you for that. And then, like I said, it seems like the reading load and the workload doubles for me at spooky season. And I don't know if that's just because I'm always leaning more toward the horror genre. But do you have any spooky season plans as far as your fiction or just in life in general?
Oh, see. I'm a New England boy. I currently live in North Carolina, where the heat has finally abated. I cannot handle this kind of humidity. It's a lot for me. So I'm a New England boy, and I like the
I'm just
fall. I
laughing
like it.
because I'm in Missouri. I'm so sorry that, oh boy, you'd be stewing like in a crock pot here.
Oh
Anyway,
my goodness, it's crazy here. It's just like like trying to breathe soup. It's insane. I don't even know how people do it. But my husband is from here, and he wanted to be closer to his family. So this is where we've ended up for the time being, and it's really nice when it's not unbreathably hot.
I had
Uh,
no idea about that area, but apparently I would be pre-equipped to survive it just from living in this swamp. So maybe I
wow.
should come visit. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, North Carolina is beautiful. It really is. Nothing like New England though. New England has my heart. Always will.
So that kind of brings another question to my mind. Do you tend to write about the places you grew up and the places you know, or do you like to research where you've never been before, or mixture?
Kind of both. It depends on what I'm writing about. And it's interesting that you say that because setting is a big part for me. I do tend to start with a description of the weather or the clouds or the temperature or whatever the environment is at hand. So that is interesting that you bring that up. I think most of the time I tend to write about places that I have known or have seen. I don't really research places I haven't been because I don't feel a connection to places I haven't been as much, and I don't want to get it wrong. Like I don't want to visit that place later in my life and be
Right.
like,
And I get
"Whoa,
the feeling with you that setting is almost another character. So
that
you
is
want to
very
nail
true."
it down and get it right.
That is very true. A lot of the time, I will conflate settings. So it'll be like a town I lived in for 15 years versus a place I lived for 3. And I'll remember pieces of something that I wrote and be like, well, wait a minute, I thought that was about this town, but no, this really has more of this city in it. And it's interesting. You
And
know,
some of the creepiest things I've ever read are almost where the setting does seem alive in some
yes,
way, watching you or existing. That whole Shirley Jackson effect, I suppose. But
definitely.
so I'm gonna try to get back to odd jobs. I tend to wander, but I'm so curious about all your other stuff, and I did want to touch on that.
Yeah.
Um, but we are here to plug odd jobs, and it is coming out through Undertaker Books on Friday the 13th. And I'm wondering, well, you said it's open to pre-orders right now,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
Okay, and are you looking for any reviewers or anything in that vein, or is it pretty much just ready to hit the shelves and get going?
It's ready to hit the shelves, but I think we're looking for reviewers if people want to review it. Happy to assist in that. I mean, really, my idea is I just want to get it to readers. I just want people to read it. And if they want to read it, then so much the better. Um, that's how I feel. So if someone does want to review it and, they can't get their hands on a copy of it, I'm sure we could help them out in some way.
Yes, reviews are always golden.
I just like hearing what people think. I'm always curious to talk about what people like and to some extent what people don't like. I think it's important to have both sides of the coin, and I really do think that a book exists when a reader reads it. It's not like it's anybody, like if you were to publish your own book, you would say, oh, that's my book. But if you were to pick a book off the bookshelf, you might say, oh, that's my book, even if it wasn't written by you. So I really
Hmm.
do think that there is something to be said for the fact that a reader brings a lot of themselves to that material. And I'm always curious to talk more about to communicate with people who have brought pieces of themselves to these stories. And there's so much here. And each story kind of spans the gamut of genre. We have like surreal literary horror, we have sci-fi speculative horror, we have straight up corporate horror, we have thriller beats. Like we have all sorts of stuff. And I would be shocked. Well, maybe not shocked because there's a lot of people out there, but I would be very surprised if people would read this and not find anything to like, because there's a lot to like.
Well, I suspect that each story on its own sort of strikes that human connection, just based on what I've read so far. And that's always what I'm looking for in literature. And there's nothing wrong with shock value and entertainment value and blood and guts if that's what you're looking for. But when I sit down and read something, I want a connection. I want to feel like, okay, maybe this is selfish of me, but I want a piece of the author. You
Yeah.
know, I want to take a piece of the author away with me. And so I like the way you phrased that about you can take a book off the shelf and say, this is their book or this is my book. And that is what we want. We want that connection. We want to feel like the reader made the connection with us. So I like
Yeah,
the
I
way you.
agree. And I don't think that it's necessarily limited to, characters who are quote unquote sympathetic or likable in any way. And I think that sometimes we see a lot of backlash in the community where people complain about, unlikable characters, or they didn't finish a book because they didn't like what was going on. And I think sometimes that's due to the fact that there's a lot of ugliness in ourselves. And sometimes we see it reflected in books, and we're like, oh, I don't like seeing that. That's not who I am. And I think that kind of plays into it
Absolutely.
sometimes. And I like reading about things that remind me of, maybe parts of myself that I don't want to look at all the time, because if I don't look
And
at them,
I,
they're going to grow in the darkness and then take over or something. I don't know.
it just makes me recall that I've said before that I'm not interested in a one sided villain.
Mhm.
Um, Sure. Some real life monsters we look at and we cannot see any good in them and we don't want to. We'd rather throw them away because they're awful and that's what they deserve. But in reality nobody is 100% evil. So if you can show me a villain and almost give me a glimpse through their eyes whether I like it or not, that to me is more successful than just here's your bad guy. He's going to cut your head off, better run away. So
Yes, I
I
definitely agree
think
with
the
that.
type of stuff you're putting out and with these anthologies and with your own work is really appealing to me. And I'm being serious. I'm probably gonna start reading you and stalking you a little bit online because I'm liking what I'm hearing here.
Cool. No, that sounds awesome. I agree with you on the villain piece. One of the reasons why I chose the framing mechanism for Odd Jobs that I did was because corporations, being comprised of so many different pieces and factors and inhuman decisions. I either read an article or I watched a documentary or something like that where they said if you apply conventional psychological diagnosis, that a corporation would be considered a psychopath. And that kind of evil, that composite humanity that comes together to create a bigger evil that then trickles down, term used specifically, to all of these subsidiary companies in this anthology. I couldn't say, oh, this company is evil without putting a face on it. And then, like, creating the big faceless company that sort of spans all the other companies was my attempt to sort of paint this in a bit of a antagonist way. And I think that works. So,
And the anonymity that you've already achieved in that intro, because there's cult vibes here, but not because a cult you can put a finger on and you can say, this is their beliefs, this is run by so and so. But this faceless company, um, it's, I don't know, so much creepier.
and when you
Anyway.
think about it, companies don't really have faces. Sure, they might have a facade, they might present themselves a certain way to the community at large, but like I mentioned earlier, my day job is I work at a supermarket, a corporate chain supermarket. And honestly, I kind of love my job from day to day because I know so many of the regulars. in this community who come in every day and shop, and they tell me their stories, and I've gotten to know a lot of them on a first name basis. And I've often said to myself, I just wish that I didn't have to like deal with the faceless corporation aspect of this. I wish it were just, a corner store where I could give back to the community in a way that I find appealing and, like you said, sings to my soul in a different way. But unfortunately, the faceless hover over us all. So,
Yes. And it always makes me think of this Bentley Little book I read because, I mean, everything is a Bentley Little book eventually, but I think it was called The Executive. And I don't know if he ever fully described this person's face or anything, but he just comes in and hijacks these people's lives, just like these faceless companies and corporations, and this vibe that you're going for in this anthology. And this was years ago. And even though I've read, hundreds of novels since then, well, maybe not hundreds, I don't know, but it stuck with me. So that is, you don't see it a whole lot. And I won't even say in the horror genre, because like you said, this anthology, it spans the genres. It really is. You can't put it in a box, but it's dark. I get that feeling. And I kind of forgot where I'm going with that, but suffice it to say, I'm really excited about it for you and for all the authors in it.
yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for the fact that most of us, I think, a great majority of us, especially in the writing world and in the creative disciplines, have to have some sort of monetary. We have to have an income stream. We have to have a day job. We have to go serve the faceless, as it were. And I think that part of our lives is often dismissed because it isn't what we truly want to do. But I think that there are some horrors there that we don't always want to face because we have to continually return again and again and again and again. So I think that's part of why we don't really see a lot of that addressed. Because again, to return to your earlier point, there are a lot of people who read to escape the stuff that they don't want to think about, which is you get out of your day job, you don't maybe want to sit down and read about how awful your day job is because you still have to go back in tomorrow.
And then the day job is a horror and a nightmare in itself on some levels to creative people because it's so hindering. And you do take your tiny brackets of time to do your creative thing and you work so hard at it and you face so many obstacles that people don't know about. And you take your tiny brackets of time you have away from your day job and you put something out and then you get a review and somebody didn't like it. And it still beats the heck out of the day job.
It's interesting that you talk about time. I feel like that's really interesting because when I'm at work, what I think about is the passage of time. I'm acutely aware of the passage of time because I know if I go in at 9 o'clock in the morning and I have my lunch break at 1 o'clock, I am waiting for 1 o'clock to come. And then I clock out and I go to my hour break. And then when my hour break is happening, I think, oh, I've only got so many minutes until I have to go back. And then when I go back to the job, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get out at 6 p.m. I've only got X amount of hours left to go. So I'm acutely aware of the passage of time. However, in opposition to that, when I'm writing or when I'm engaged in a creative pursuit, I have no idea what time it is. I don't know how many hours have passed. I don't know how many minutes have passed. I don't even look at the clock. I look up and it's dark and I'm like, what happened to the day? So,
Exactly.
and I like that. I prefer that. I don't want to know what time it is because I'm very time paranoid. I'm constantly aware of the fact that I am doing something that is not writing and that I'm wasting time in some way by not using that time to write, which is a pressure that often informs some of my writer's block because I need to let go of that.
I'm
But,
just I'm giggling a little because I have often considered it a form of employee torture to put that ticking hand clock on the wall. I
yeah,
don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it.
yep, exactly. To be aware of time is it's like a water torture. It's one dripping minute going by after another, after another, after another. And I mean, no one. It's funny. My husband used to tell me that they call work work because it is work. If it weren't, then we would call it something else. And I always kind of bridled at that definition because I don't like that idea. I don't like the idea of not being able to do the thing that I want to do because I have to do another thing. I don't know. I'm not explaining it very well, but something
No,
about work.
I get it. It's because you're submitting without even having a choice.
Yes, you are. Well, you sign the contract, and then you have the agreements, and it's funny. Like even I think about
Never
calling out
sign the
on that.
contract. Mm.
Well, I think about it too. On days when I'm kind of not feeling a little well, or maybe I just don't want to go in and have a perma smile on my face and deal with the general public one day, and I think about calling out, and then I think to myself, God, I'd really be screwing over my coworkers. They'd have to work twice as hard because I wouldn't be there. I mean, that's not really always true. That's me catastrophizing. But I feel bad about it, and I feel like people shouldn't. They should put their time
Yeah.
first, and
Who
I think
needs
that's
all
really
that
hard.
stress when you should be putting these great stories out into the world?
Well, what's more important? You have to ask yourself: making money and supporting your future in a financial and responsible way, or slaving away and not eating an emaciated skeleton in front of the computer, pounding your fists on your temples, trying to come up with some sort of creative thing that might sell for a couple cents a word. Like
And that is the question we ask ourselves 99 times a day, but not 100 because that would be crazy.
that would be crazy and horrific.
Well, speaking of the passage of time, um, I don't know. We've been on for about 37 minutes, and I feel like we've had a good chat. We've probably covered all the bases, but I'm going to ask if there's anything else you wanted to discuss because I'll be honest, I didn't come up with questions for myself beforehand. And in case you couldn't tell, I was winging it a little bit, but people told me they like that. They like it when I come on here being myself for some reason.
I couldn't tell
Um,
at all. No, I think you've been a wonderful conversationalist, and I very much enjoyed our 37 minutes up until this point.
cool. So, was there anything else you wanted to touch on at all?
I mean, other than it's a great book, go check it out and read it. These authors are published in many, many other places, and
The
again,
amount of awards, I'm going to go back to that. It started to make my eyes cross, and I had to stop.
they're all amazing. They really are. I mean, Ai Jiang's Lingun. I'm not sure if I said that right, and I apologize, if I got that wrong. But it was the Bram Stoker Award winner for Best Long Fiction this year, and it richly deserved it. I was lucky enough to read an early copy of it, and as soon as I was done reading it, I instantly sent her a message and said, "If this doesn't win the Stoker Award, I will eat my hat." There is no way that this does not win a Stoker Award. It's instant. I have never used that phrase before, really, to describe anything. Instant classic, because it's a dumb
I'm just
phrase.
over here adding to my list that TJ has given me of everything I have to read
Okay,
now.
well, get ready because there's more. No, but Lincoln is fantastic. It's one of the best books I've read in recent years. And then Ivy Grimes published Star Shapes, which is a novella that I called it Southern Discomfort, which is like it's in the Flannery O'Connor, Shirley Jackson tradition.
Okay.
It's 100% Ivy Grimes, though. I love everything Ivy does. I think her work is so fascinating and idiosyncratic and intelligent and interesting. There's so much good stuff of hers out there. She recently also released a collection through Grimscribe Press called Glass Stories. Very, very good stories in there that I have read. Let's see. To continue, Erik McHatton is a frequent publisher in Cosmic Horror Monthly. You can find his stories in many of their issues. I am also in the honored position of editing his first short story collection, which won't be coming out for about another year, but it will be coming out by Undertaker. So we're very excited about that. Let's
Very
see.
cool.
Carson is also fantastic. He's got a great mind and he's constantly questioning stuff that we take for granted. His novel, The Psychographist, came out via Apocalypse Party earlier this year. And if anyone is planning on reading that just based on the title and the author alone, It is a very hard book to recommend to just anyone, as there are quite a bit of reader advisories going in, but it is like nothing else you've ever read. It
Well,
is.
for some people, that'll have them rushing to get it.
This is what I'm saying. Though all publicity is good publicity, right?
Right.
He's great. He's got that. He also has Post Haste Manor, which was co-written with Jolie Tumajan. I apologize, Jolie, if I got your name wrong there. Post Haste Manor is a novel told in stories, published by Tenebris Press. Also, one of the best books I've read in recent years. Just fascinating voices overlapping the history of a haunted house, essentially at its core. It's, I believe somebody described it as like the house and House of Leaves, but as like a pissed off adolescent.
Okay.
Really, really great. Fantastic book. Not talked about enough as far as I'm concerned. And Carson just also released A Spectre's Haunting Green Tree, which is about anti-capitalist scarecrows in a small town, also by Tenebris. Let's see, that's Carson. Christi Nogle needs no introduction, at least not for me. She is wonderful. One of the most generous members of the writing community and horror community I have ever had the pleasure to ever have a conversation with. She won the Stoker Award for Best First Novel for her ghost novel Beulah. That was 2 years ago, I believe. And she is also the author of 3 short story collections, which have all been published by Flame Tree Press. That is The Best of Our Past, The Worst of Our Future, and Promise, and One Eye Opened in That Other Place.
Okay.
Those are all fantastic. I love Christie's work. It's highly surreal, gorgeous, dreamlike, the kind of like you just
I
wander
have
into
one of
it.
hers on my Kindle, and so the TBR continues to grow.
Oh yeah, and that's 5 out of 6. So then we'll turn to Caleb Stevens, who
Okay.
also has fantastic books out. His novel *The Girls in the Cabin* won an award. I believe it was Best Indie Book Award. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it is a thriller. So it has those thriller beats, but it still has very relatable character dynamics. Really taut pacing, really great. He also has a novel called *Feeders* out, which is a post-apocalyptic kind of road novel that has some truly brutal scenes in it and some characters you love to hate, that's a personal predilection of mine. I love to hate a character. And he also has some books that are forthcoming that I'm really excited about. He has another thriller coming out called *If You Lie*. I think that's coming out soon. It might even be this month. I'd have to double check on that. But he's great too.
Well, don't ask me what month it is, because I won't be.
Maybe in 1st October, maybe 2nd October. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it's also looks really good. I haven't read it yet, but I'm excited to read it. I think that's everyone. Oh, and I has a book coming out very soon called *A Palace Near the Wind*, which I believe leans more fantasy. But it is the first, I believe, in a duology. And even though fantasy isn't exactly my bailiwick, I'm still really, really pumped to read it because I think I have yet to read anything by Ai that has failed to impress me. So
I just queued a YouTube video of I earlier because real quick I was trying to figure out the pronunciation of the name, which I failed to do because I got distracted. But it was I versus AI. So I'm going to go back to that because I want to see I destroy AI, which I think is going to be the point of the video. Because real writers are better. Come on now.
Yes. I mean, there is no replacing the human creative instinct, as I think we kind of showcase in this anthology. Even though these stories are all about the horror of the workplace and the automation of the human and that sort of thing, you really cannot replace the gorgeous prose that's in each one of these stories.
Absolutely.
Like, there's some indelible images in these pieces that I would be hard pressed to say I have forgotten anything from any of these stories, but obviously I've worked with them very, very closely, so I'm pretty familiar with their imagery. But even if I hadn't, I would still say that this is definitely an anthology that would linger in my mind for quite some time after reading.
Okay. Well, that's surely going to get everyone out there.
I hope so.
And getting a copy of Odd Jobs, 6 Files from the Department of Inhuman Resources.
Yes.
You can look at Undertaker books online. Like I said, you can pull them up on pretty much all social media, but also undertakerbooks.com will get you to everything they're doing. Our guest, TJ Price, is at tjpricewrites.com. And I do hope everyone checks out TJ's work and checks out this anthology because I'm telling you, it's a good one. I don't lie. There's no reason for me to. I just stay quiet. If it's a lie, I just stay quiet.
Can't wait to hear what you have to say about the rest of them. Once you do, please feel free to send me an email or whatever you'd like.
I'll
I would
have
just
to
love to hear
review it on. I'll have to put it on the Weird Wide Web blog.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be great. I think I will.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, TJ. This has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Yes, very much. Likewise. Thanks for having me on.
All right. And everyone get out there on Friday the 13th and get this anthology. And I will see you on the next episode of the Weird Wide Web podcast.